There is a letter. It was written on a Thursday in February 2025 in a federal office building in Lower Manhattan. The person writing it knew before she finished the first paragraph that her career was over. She wrote it anyway, and when she was done, she sent it directly to the Attorney General of the United States. Nobody leaked it. Nobody staged it. Nobody planned a press conference. She just wrote the truth about what had been asked of her and handed it upward into the system that had asked. What happened next would trigger the largest mass resignation of senior federal prosecutors in American history. It would expose a documented bargain between the White House and a sitting mayor of New York City, and it would set in motion the quiet, deliberate destruction of the one office in the American government specifically built to make sure something like this could never happen. Her name was Danielle Sassoon, and almost nobody knows it. To understand what she was asked to do, you have to understand what she was sitting on. The Southern District of New York is not a typical federal prosecutor's office. It is the office that took down the Gambino crime family, prosecuted Enron, and sent Wall Street executives to prison when nobody else would touch them. When the SDNY has a case, it means something. And in the fall of 2024, the SDNY had Eric Adams. Adams was the mayor of New York City. He was also, according to a federal grand jury, a criminal. The indictment was 5 counts: bribery, fraud, conspiracy, and soliciting illegal foreign campaign donations. The core of it was almost cinematic in its simplicity. Turkish officials had given Adams years of luxury travel, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, and in exchange, Adams had used his position to pressure the New York City Fire Department into approving safety permits for a Turkish consulate building that had failed inspection. The building could have killed people. Adams approved it anyway. The case was solid. 9 months of evidence, 60 seized devices. A trial date set for April 2025. Sassoon had inherited it as acting U.S. attorney, the top federal law enforcement officer in the most powerful prosecutorial district in the country. She did not reach for the phone. She opened a blank document and began to type. What Sassoon did not know yet, or what she was about to refuse to pretend she did not know, was that a negotiation had already been underway. Adams had spent most of 2024 doing something no indicted mayor in American history had done quite so openly. He had been lobbying the incoming administration for help, not quietly, not through back channels, publicly, visibly. He had appeared at Trump events, praised Trump's immigration agenda, and positioned himself as the rare Democratic mayor willing to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement in his own city. The message was not subtle, and someone in Washington had heard it. In early February 2025, Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove contacted Sassoon with an order: drop the Adams case. The official justification offered was that the charges were interfering with the mayor's ability to govern, and specifically, his ability to support the administration's immigration enforcement priorities. Adams had already agreed to open Rikers Island, New York City's main jail complex, to federal immigration authorities. That cooperation, Bove's position suggested, was worth something. What it was worth, apparently, was a federal bribery indictment. Sassoon wrote her letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi on February 13th. It was not a polite disagreement. It was a documented allegation. She stated directly that DOJ leadership, including Bove, was explicitly aware that the dismissal had been suggested by Adams's own attorneys as a trade. Adams's public support of Trump's immigration agenda in exchange for the charges disappearing. She called it what it was, and she resigned rather than sign her name to the motion that would make it real. The letter landed like a charge. By the time Scotton's letter landed, Bove was already on a video call, and he was offering promotions. Hagen Scotton had been the lead prosecutor on the Adams case, the attorney who knew its evidence best, who had spent months preparing it for trial. His resignation letter, addressed to Bove personally, did not mince language. He wrote that he expected Bove would eventually find someone to sign the dismissal motion. Someone, he said, who was enough of a fool or enough of a coward. He made clear he would not be that person. 6 other senior prosecutors resigned the same week. Acting Public Integrity Section Chief John Keller resigned rather than execute the order. 3 more senior officials in Washington resigned after being placed on administrative leave and told their reinstatement required them to admit wrongdoing in a case where, by every documented measure, there had been none. Bove convened the remaining attorneys of the Public Integrity Section on a video call. He told them there would be serious consequences for continued refusal. He offered promotions, leadership positions, to any attorney willing to sign. He gave them 1 hour. Think about what that moment was. The acting second in command of the Department of Justice, on a video call with career prosecutors who had spent their careers putting corrupt officials in prison, offering them career advancement in exchange for burying a corruption case. 1 hour to decide, and here is what almost nobody reported, because the story of who resigned was louder than the story of what was left behind. The Public Integrity Section of the Department of Justice was not just a unit, it was the unit, created specifically in response to Watergate because the country had just watched a president use the machinery of the DOJ to protect himself and his allies and decided never again. For 50 years it had investigated and prosecuted sitting politicians from both parties, governors, senators, mayors, congressmen. It operated on one principle: no official was above its reach. When Trump returned to office in January 2025, the Public Integrity Section had 40 full-time attorneys and approximately 200 open cases. By May 2026, the month this documentary was completed, it had two attorneys. 180 cases had been closed, transferred, or quietly allowed to die. If you voted in the last election or plan to vote in the next one, understand what that means in concrete terms. The 2026 midterm elections are underway right now, and there is no longer a functioning federal unit specifically tasked with investigating whether the candidates on your ballot committed bribery, election fraud, or abuse of office to get there. That office existed for half a century. It was dismantled in 90 days. And the chain of events that dismantled it began with one order delivered to one prosecutor who refused to follow it. Eventually, someone signed. A political appointee, not a career prosecutor, put his name on the dismissal motion. The DOJ filed it in federal court, asking Judge Dale Ho to drop the Adams case without prejudice, reserving the option to refile charges later. The without prejudice framing was deliberate. It meant Adams would remain useful, compliant, dependent, perpetually vulnerable to having his charges reinstated if his cooperation ever wavered. The White House had lost the Adams case, but nobody was watching what happened next. Judge Ho read the motion, then he read it again. Then he wrote 78 pages in response. His opinion did not use careful diplomatic language. He wrote that the government's core justification that the prosecution had been politically motivated was, in his documented assessment, unsupported. He wrote that the pattern of events before him pointed in one direction. He used a specific phrase that would later be quoted in news coverage across the country. "Everything here," he wrote, "smacks of a bargain." And then he did something the White House had not anticipated. He dismissed the case with prejudice, not without prejudice, with permanent, irrevocable, no refiling, no future leverage. The charges against Eric Adams were gone, and so was the administration's ability to hold them over his head. Sassoon's letter, written alone in a federal office in Lower Manhattan on a Thursday morning, had been quoted in a federal judicial opinion. A sitting judge had confirmed on the record what she had alleged. The bargain she had refused to execute had been acknowledged by the one branch of government that none of them could control. What does it mean when someone is right about everything, and it still does not matter? The Public Integrity Section is not coming back. The cases it was building are not being rebuilt. The prosecutors who resigned are in private practice. Bove remained in his position. Adams completed his mayoral term. The Turkish consulate building, the one with the failed fire inspection, the one at the center of 5 federal counts, is still standing. Danielle Sassoon has not made a public statement since she resigned. There is no record of her speaking about the letter, the case, or what came after. She wrote the truth, she handed it upward, and the system swallowed it whole.